football happened yesterday, and that's the most important thing we got to hit on first because I'm a Vikings fan. Casey is a 49ers fan. They went head-to-head on Monday Night Football, and the Niners ruined my betting week. I'm going to be honest. The 49ers, I bet on the 49ers on the money line. I wasn't going to win very much money, but I went ahead and lost a bunch of money because Primetime Kirk decided to actually be Primetime Kirk, like earn a good version of that nickname and win a game. What happened to your Niners? Are they just not what's going on here? They were supposed to be the best team in decades.
Yeah, I mean, I could ask the same question to you. What happened to my Niners? I don't know. They look like kind of a generational team in one moment, and then they dropped 2 games to teams they should easily beat.
I like what Miguel said. Cousins happened. Mr. Captain Kirk, the whitest guy in the NFL, Cousins, showed up, and I've been telling you, like, I think I said like 3 weeks ago to you, Casey, I'm like, dude, I think Kirk Cousins is pretty good, which it sounds weird because I'm a Vikings fan, but I've been lower on Kirk Cousins than like most the people who aren't Vikings fans. A lot of people are like, oh, he's underrated and stuff. I'm like, I don't know, man. You ever seen him play a primetime game? It's pretty ugly. But when Justin Jefferson left the game mid-game with like hamstring, like watching Kirk, I'm like, no, he's good. It's not just JJ. Like he is pretty good. He's a good quarterback. And I, at the time, was like, hey, before this week, I would have said he's not as good as Brock Purdy, but I actually think he's as good as Brock Purdy. You said, no way. Brock Purdy, so much better, quick decision maker, gets the ball out faster. What are your thoughts now? Kirk Cousins, Brock Purdy, where do you put them? You put them right next to each other? I mean, do you still give the edge to Brock? Try and make yourself objective here.
Yeah. Just so that we're fair, I think we've always had them like around back to back, right? Like, sure. I mean, we're not. We're
talking I don't know if we do that for narrative because you're like, I don't want to make you feel bad about.
Well, Kirk, even if I think a lot of people would say that's skewed the other way too. Is that I'm like, pitching Purdy. You could put either one of them a step.
I think both of us have been higher on Purdy than Kirk for most of the time. Maybe just
for sure. We were early on the Purdy train. It's looked good for the majority of the season. Now people maybe are bringing it into question again, but honestly, I haven't seen that too much out there. I think Purdy has arrived to the tier that we're talking about, is what I'm saying. Yeah. He's like top 20 quarterbacks at least. Like,
I think it's better. I think it's bigger. I think he's a top 10 QB. I think he's a top 10
That's what
guy.
I mean, though. The consensus is that Kirk, that's why we're talking about Purdy, is they're one and the same almost to the national media. Yeah. They're these like unathletic white guys with like fast processing ability and like okay enough arm strength, if we're being honest. And like kind of they manage the game well and the team, the game flow, things like that. Those intangibles, right? That we talk about. We've had them kind of like right near the top 10, like knocking on the top 10's door. Every time we
knocking on the top 10's door.
Yeah, top 7 would have been like knocking on 7's door. But
I'm sorry, I missed that. That was an opportunity for me to make a better.
I mean, I said top 10. You can only work with what I give you. So
hey, you know what? We share the blame. We're team out here. We share the blame.
I pulled it up before the season started. Right before the season started, that's when we did our quarterback power rankings. We had Purdy at 15 and Kirk Cousins at 16. And I think we've both risen on both of those guys from that spot. And whether or not either of them have entered the top 10 is like a week-to-week kind of thing, honestly. But Kirk's a guy, man. And he might be better than Purdy. He definitely was better than Purdy on Monday. So I'm reeling right now, honestly. We were down a couple big guys, but I mean, you guys were down Justin Jefferson. So like,
sure,
it's a matchup where I still think the Niners win it more times out of 10, but hey, it's any given Monday kind of league this week.
I do, yeah. So I'll say a couple. I mean, first of all, had eyes on a lot of Vikings football this year, and when you've watched them, you're like, they are good. You know, they're kind of dropping some games that like maybe they could win, or maybe they're 50-50 games. The call doesn't go their way, something happens, whatever, right? But like you watch them the whole game, and it's like, it's not like watching a bad football team. You know when you're watching a bad football team and they make mistakes and they're like kind of disgusting. You watch the Vikings, it's like, no, they mostly do good stuff. They just give up a big play, or they do, like some circumstance happens. It's always within one score. And you're kind of like, these games should be rolling the other way. Now, are they Niners good? No, I did not think they were Niners good, but they're also a team that plays everybody incredibly close, right? So if you have a bad night, Vikings are going to get you. And I think that's kind of what happened with the Niners. CMC, I think you said earlier, CMC looked human. I'm like, a human with 2 touchdowns and like 100+ yards, but I know what you mean when you say that. Like he touched the ball and it was like, oh, you could tackle him with one guy. Yeah, like I saw him get tackled by one guy.
It's
That's
just
not
not
normal.
normal. It's not normal
Yeah.
for him at all, and he's anything but normal for sure. Being down Debo, being down Trent Williams, 2 big pieces of the offense. You're not making excuses. Just worth noting that, like,
Yeah.
when they get those guys back, the offense does look different. I think what let me down more was the defense. Honestly, the offense
Yeah.
kind of did its job. In the same way that last week, I don't know if y'all remember, but the Niners were going into their game last week undefeated, and they only lost the last game because the kicker missed a field goal, a makeable field goal in the waning moments of the game. So again, the offense didn't really not do their job that week either. So I'm kind of pinning this more on like, hey, the heart and soul of our team is the defense. Make no mistake about that. And I don't know how many third downs I was watching where I'm like, we need a playmaker to make a play here. Yeah, we need Bosa to get in there and kind of change the whole slope of this game. Completely put him against the wall a little bit, and we just never did that. And that's how you lose games.
Dude, I will tell you this, a lot of watching Vikings football is watching Kirk Cousins take a freaking beating because he's got 1 second to get the ball
in the league
out.
at it. The best in the league at it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, how many quarterbacks think about it, how many quarterbacks wear that stupid flak jacket looking thing?
Yeah. I mean, he's got to. He has to. There's no choice.
No, I mean, that's why his midsection looks like all puffy. Like, there are him and like Jalen Hurts, I think maybe wears one, or he might just be a tank under there. I don't know. But like, you can tell when a guy is like, they have those, there's body shape changes. Kirk is like the only one that comes to mind that I know for sure he's wearing one.
He just doesn't get great protection, and like Justin Jefferson does better on longer routes, so he's like wait until the last minute to get that ball out a lot of the time. And so, but what I saw yesterday was a lot of like play action and then time. He had 2 seconds for the play to develop and for him to find an open guy. And that was just not what I expected against the Niners at all. I will say this on the Purdy and Cousins argument, something you haven't brought up and you've brought up before, and I think is true and valid. You haven't brought it up on the show. Kirk Cousins gets paid a lot more money.
It's like a $40 million difference or something like that.
Now, if you took him just on didn't add any money to it. If you say, put Brock Purdy in Minnesota, what does he look like? Put Kirk Cousins in San Francisco, what does he look like? I do think they look similar. I think maybe, Cousins being a vet maybe helps him a little bit. I think Brock Purdy having to take 10 hits a game, to watch the plays develop, watch those Kevin O'Connell plays develop not as quickly as the Kyle Shanahan plays.
Right. And the reason why you're going through these qualifiers is because the answer is Kirk Cousins would look better than Brock Purdy in the Niners offense, and Brock Purdy would look worse in the Vikings offense than Kirk Cousins does.
But that's $40 million better?
That is probably not true. And also, I think even the money aside, if you allowed Purdy as many years in the league as Kirk has had to develop, make the experience not the thing anymore, then who knows? Like, then I think it's likely Purdy passes him up just based on how quickly he's come out of the gates in his career. But yeah, to your point, there's a lot of different aspects to it. But at the end of the day, Kirk is proven some Kirk haters wrong. I mean,
I love it.
He probably belongs in the top 10. Let's not bring Purdy into this. Kirk alone probably belongs in the top 10 QBs as far as like when you're doing, forget about how old they are, how you could build a franchise.
How much they get paid,
If you need a quarterback for this season and you want to win the Super Bowl, like who are your top 10? Kirk Cousins has to be in that list. There's
and he learns the system quick. He can switch. Yeah. He's a multi-system quarterback. So it's and that's if your plays like Kyle Shanahan, let's just say this. Kyle Shanahan is a much better offensive coordinator than whoever the OC is in Minnesota. And I think Kevin O'Connell is a pretty offensive coach. And I'm not saying that they're bad. It's just Kyle Shanahan's incredibly good.
Yeah,
but their plays take longer to develop, and Kirk's going to take a lot of hits doing that. We know who
Kirk Cousins is because of Kyle Shanahan's offense. Right. That's where he emerged. So, I mean.
Well, and there's another example in Washington of offensive. The Kirk's never been well protected in his whole career, never well protected. But a Kyle Shanahan offense allows for that. It's like this thing, you can get the ball out quick. There's a lot of options, I mean, I think we beat this game to death. I'm not going to do too much of a victory dance because I bet it the other way. And so they really kind of, the Niners really kind of screwed my betting week. But hey, I felt like a winner either way. I either won my betting week or we win a game against the Niners on Monday night. Let me ask you this about the Vikings. Vikings staring down the barrel of 6 very winnable games. I think we're talking about like the Bears, the Saints, the Raiders. I can't remember who else. 6 very winnable games. What do you think? Where do you think the Vikings land end of the season? You think they still have a chance to get atop of the NFC North?
Definitely still have a chance. Definitely. Obviously standings matter, and momentum probably matters even more than the standings after the first, 6-7 weeks. But people definitely make too big of a deal about like who would currently be in the playoffs if the season ended today. If you're still in the front half of the season and you're talking like that, you just have the wrong view. It just doesn't matter as much at all. Like I said, those wins matter more as like building blocks to more success than anything. So yeah, I mean, the teams that become the hottest in the second half of the season are so often the teams that continue to play well into the playoffs and ultimately win a Super Bowl. I think it's actually pretty in fashion these days. Like it's pretty stylish to start the season off kind of bad, all Bengals-y, 49ers. They were doing that the first few years. They were really in the playoff discussion too. Yeah, I mean, you don't want to come out of the gates good. You got to give the media something to report on, and then you overcome all adversity, go on a win streak, and you went into the playoffs.